Welcome to the Economy and Politics Show. I'm Ottoabasi Abasiekong. This edition will discuss repositioning the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited for national development. Joining me virtually is Mr. Mukhtar Mohammed, an energy analyst. Nice to have you, Mr. Mukhtar.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Let us begin with the current governance and operating model of the NNPCL. The big question is it delivering value for the Nigerian economy? We've seen the financials, 2023, profit of 3.3 trillion naira, dividends of 2.1 trillion naira. And we remember that its first profit was in 2021, where it declared 287 billion naira. But the big question is, looking at what we're seeing in Saudi Arabia with Saudi Aramco and Brazil, we have Petrobras, is it delivering the value as a national oil company viable for national development at this time?
No. When you read out those numbers, they are exciting numbers. People tend to think, okay, wow, what a good result, 2.1 trillion in terms of dividend payment. But not to forget that that dividend will not be paid because it has gone into subsidy. The president has already given an approval on that for the next 6 months. I mean, they are not going to remit anything into the Federation account. So what you see there is what they will call in local parlors audio profit or audio or paper profit, like we'll call it in investment cycle. So nothing has changed. Whether they are profitable, you mentioned some very good companies, Saudi Arabia, Aramco. When you look at those companies, they have corporate governance and they are listed on the exchange of these various countries. It's not like Nigeria. We are still waiting for NNPCL to tell us when they will do their IPO. But even with this, will you as an investor looking at NNPC, will you want to invest in a company that does not have corporate governance? Will you want to invest in a company that will not pay you dividend? You want to invest in a company that's ensuring a lot of controversy? You want to invest in a company that is giving you an audited report of some of the things you have done and they are in secrecy? You look at social responsibility, and the NNPC is saying, look, we paid 7 billion for this, but it didn't tell us who they paid it to. The only place they mention of any corporate is when they talk about NNPC Foundation and Nupen and Pengency. So you don't want to invest in such an environment. And like I say, and I will say it always, the only way you can get the NNPC back to stream of making profit, real profit, is also to get them listed, and so that they become a fully public limited, fully public company, not what we obtain now, where it's being owned by the government, whether through the vehicle called Ministry of Finance or Ministry of Petroleum Resources. It's still not. So it's still not a corporate entity. The nomenclature has not changed in the way NNPC does things. So there's a lot of work to be done in that space.
Now, you've talked about the real test. We'll come to that issue of going to the market. But let us look at, as a federation, the federation still is a shareholder for the national oil company. And you talked about subsidy. The president has approved the subsidy to the dividends to take care of the subsidy payment. But there's a major challenge about subsidy in Nigeria. The ability to even know if what we're paying is correct. And of course, some analysts have said there's a need to audit subsidy payment. Do you subscribe to the auditing of subsidy payments to know what we're paying? And of course, you know the history. We've had the Farouk Lawan Committee, House of Reps, House of Representatives Committee. We've had the Mr. Aigboja Ikimokwede Committee too that discovered a lot of things, but at the end, we're still asking questions of how that recommendations was implemented. So when we look at as a federation, there's the state and the local government. Everything revolves around the federal government for now. Is that right? And then also auditing our subsidy payments, clarity on it, because it's very important and it trickles down to the households, which you also analyze when we have these conversations.
No, I mean, auditing of subsidy, like you said, 2 reports have done it. One was very thorough, Ikimokwede report, recommended a lot of things. And part of the recommendation was even allowing NNPC to be one of the importers directly and sell to marketers, and let the marketers have tank farms just for NNPC, and even NNPC should have tank farm. But as it stands now, none of those recommendations see the light of day. So definitely, that's why we are where we are today. Auditing subsidy is very difficult, but the only way you can audit subsidy, for me, as far as I'm concerned, is to remove subsidy totally, which they have done, but they've not done it totally. And now, when I say remove subsidy, is that you don't use your key income level to enjoy luxury. You use your key income level to develop other streams of income and look at other impact area that the impact of your subsidy will be felt more, rather than just the petroleum sector, because there's no transparency. You can't get the value of that subsidy, because what is the essence of paying subsidy in petroleum product when today, because of the fuel scarcity here in Lagos, fuel goes as high as 800, and somebody has collected subsidy at 400, 500 and something. What's the essence of paying subsidy when in Kaduna, in Kano, in Maiduguri, they've never bought fuel at that subsidized rate? So you are more or less empowering the cabal. So I think in auditing of subsidy, the only way you can audit subsidy, because these two reports came out, they gave us very strong reasons. They were thieves, people were asked to return money, but we are back there because it's just trying to trying to change something that the structure itself is bad. So I think the best way to deal with subsidy in the petroleum sector is to totally remove it and then pay subsidy in other areas. That's, for me, that's the best auditing you can do in this sector. Every other auditing will never work, because we still come back once NNPC is the sole importer of petroleum product. NNPC have said that, look, it's not that we did not make profit, but most of the profit has gone in subsidy. And why do we have, okay, the government says we remove subsidy. NNPC, yes, you remove subsidy. But in one hand, you floated the naira. At the time you remove subsidy, exchange is about 316 naira officially. That's what NNPC was using. At the time you remove subsidy, you got the willing buyer, willing seller, and subsidy has gone up to I mean, the exchange went as high as 1,900 before it's settling at 1,600. So what you think you gain in one hand, you lose in the other. So that's why I think the best way to do it, remove subsidy and then begin to say you can space subsidy in some other areas that will have huge impact on every household in Nigeria.
Yes, you've hit the nail on the head. Our analyst, last edition of this show, talked about the need to put subsidies in productive activities, not subsidized consumption. But of course, what you've said is really the thing that is really affecting the households. I mean, some parts 700 plus, some parts 900 naira plus. It's eating deep into the households, and we need to really, really address this quickly. But you talked about listing of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. The Chief Financial Officer of the NNPCL, Mr. Umar Ajia, said the board and shareholders will agree on that timeline for listing. For you, what is very critical in terms of the impediments and the probable solutions in taking on this listing, because it will bring more governance, transparency, accountability, and what has been touted as the need to incorporate our joint ventures, because when it's incorporated, of course, we can begin to see value from it.
Well, again, when they want to be listed, they have to put their house in order, because when you want to be listed, you have fact behind the figures, there are criteria to be met before you've been listed. You can't just come and say, because I'm an NNPC, I've made the profit, I want to be listed. Most of them will have to give us the audited report. That's what will be used to get investors to want to invest, get good investors. As it stands now, the way NNPC is showing a lot of overhead costs in NNPC budget. You have they said in that budget, their directors also have gotten an income about 416% in terms of allowances and salaries. I mean, bogus salaries. You don't want to be listed with that, no matter the profit that you have. Exchange volatility is there. They lost over 1 trillion in terms of because of the floating of the naira. All these things are there. So for you to want to come to the market, you must get all these parameters right. You must allow investors to look at it and say, okay, this is a company I want to invest in. And so for that, you have to get your house in order. You can't be bringing me an auditor report where you're saying that you are paying subsidy, because you are going to become a public company whereby you don't have those. And then again, the board of NNPC, who are those people that are really the agency that regulates the petroleum sector? Do they really regulate the NNPC? So again, you need to look at the regulation, because like the banks, before they publish any result in the exchange, they have to take it to CBN to vet it, to be sure what you are saying. And sometimes CBN have returned some of these results and said, look, we don't agree with what you are trying to pay. buy this, but do also NNPC have that. NNPC as his board decide what they want to pay, decide as a board sit down with the Ministry of Petroleum. So it's still run like a small company. So all those things need to be put in place, and before you begin to say you want to be listed. It's not just because you are making profit, you are NNPC, you just be listed and we'll understand. No.
And we know that the regulators are for the upstream, the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, and of course, there's the Nigeria Midstream Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. So it's very important, like you rightly said, regulations come on board. But as we from your end, Mr. Mukhtar, as we wrap up, do you see NNPCL hit that target of 2 million barrels per day production?
It's a tough task. But you have to say they've tried from 700 to 800, and now they're doing 1.3 million barrel per day. Fantastic. But again, when you look at all the forward sales they've done, it's going to be tough because it's the only way they can meet some of this demand, especially local refining petroleum product. They also have to meet their commitment to IOCs, their commitment to forward buying loans they've collected upfront. So these are the challenges that they have to deal with. And then you have not forgotten that oil theft is still there. But like I said, if you look at that, they spend so much money in security, also about 1.something trillion in security to make sure they get that. So if you look at that what they've achieved, you could say, okay, you've tried, but there's still a lot of work to be done. So I think that it's all depending on the security agency, because more or less it's not just in their own hands alone. The security agency also have to come on board and see how they can make sure that we improve capacity, especially in the production side. We come up with new security measures and to make sure that the NNPC is able to produce a lot of crude. Those crude that are produced are not stolen, because it's not that we cannot produce up to 2 million barrels, but the number of the amount of crude that is stolen out of this country is even more than the amount that we produce. So there's a lot of work to be done there. And unfortunately, it's not really in the hands of the NNPC. It's also in the hands of the security agent, which means it's in the hands of the physical side, which means it's in the hands of government, which means it's in the hands of Mr. President, which fortunately is the Minister for Petroleum.
Yes, you just said Mr. President is the Minister of Petroleum, and of course, we expect some key actions. What are one or two things you'd like to see happen going forward from the President, who doubles as Minister of Petroleum, just to really, really reposition NNPCL for national development?
Number one, declare a state of emergency in the oil sector. That's one thing that we do that will change the narrative. Secondly, make sure NNPC gets full corporate governance. That is key. The regulators must regulate NNPC. A situation whereby NNPC looks like they are their own regulators. So those are the two areas: state of emergency in that sector, and make sure that NNPC regulates fully and empowering the regulators to regulate NNPC.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mukhtar Mohammed, Energy Analyst, for this very interesting conversation on repositioning the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited for national development. It's a national oil company, and there's a quest for it to transit from being government-owned to market-driven. The conversation will continue as we continue to see how this company evolves to become more valuable to our national development aspirations. Thank you once again for the time, Mr. Mukhtar.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. If you want to get further insights on this conversation, you can visit our website. Displayed on the screen, we have comprehensive analysis on the oil and gas developments, and of course, reports on the Nigerian National Petroleum Company 2023 financials and various other commentaries around it. Also follow our social media platforms to engage further as we continue to provide you incisive financial reports and economic development stories. Till you come your way again, enrich yourself with the knowledge of socioeconomic developments around you, because it's a wise thing to do. I'm Ottoabasi Abasiekong. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.